Hi everyone, it's Audra from the Makery. I just wanted to quickly go over the exercise that we worked on in class using the Inkscape program. Um, I am going to go over a few things just as reminders, a few of the keystrokes that we talked about. The first one is the plus key, which zooms your screen in, and then the minus key, which zooms your screen out. If for some reason you get zoomed in too far and you can't find your drawing, if you hit the number 5, that will recenter the artboard on your screen. Two more things before we get started. If you go over to the File menu up top here and go down to Document Properties, this is where you can change your units to the measurement of your choice. We were working in inches, so I'm just going to make sure that I have my inches selected here and inches selected here. And then I close that out, and you can see the measurement tools along the top and the side. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unclick this over here that's it's called snapping. I'm just going to unclick that so that we don't have our shapes snapping to one another. So let's get started with the circle tool, the ellipse tool. To create a circle, we're going to, if you remember, hold down the control key, click on the artboard and drag in a diagonal, and that's going to give us a circle. I'm just going to change it to a blue color. Now if I go up here into my black arrow selection tool, I can select this shape. If I hit it twice, I can the rotation tools come up. I only need to hit it once to select it, and then I'm going to duplicate the shape. So the keyboard shortcut for that is hold down the control key and hit the letter D. So that duplicates the shape right on top of the other shape. So you can't see it until you click on it and drag it out. So now I have two shapes. And I'm actually going to create a single shape from these two shapes. But before I do it, let's say I dragged it out and I couldn't quite get it lined up. And I wanted to have these be two eyes that were sitting right next to each other. So I can select both of these shapes in a few ways. First, since they're the only things on the screen, I can hit Control A, which selects all. I can also hit one and then hold down the Shift key and hit the other. Now I've got them both selected. Or I can click up in the corner and drag a box around both of these shapes. That's called lassoing, and that will select both shapes that I have on the screen. Now if I go to Object up here on the top menu and go to Align and Distribute, this opens up a panel on the right hand side, and then I can straighten these two shapes out so they're perfectly aligned on the horizontal axis. So I'm going to select this option right here to line up those shapes. And my shapes are still selected. I see I have the dotted outlines, so that means they're selected. If I go up to Path and Union, now that will create one shape here. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is create a square. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm going to click on the control key and click and drag in the diagonal to make a perfect square. I'm going to go down to the color here and change it to an orange. And then back to my selection tool. This selects the last shape that I was using. Now if I hit it again, I get those rotation arrows. And then I can rotate my beak around. If I hold down the control key while I rotate, I can actually rotate it in 15-degree increments, so I can get it perfectly at a sort of diamond-shaped 90-degree rotation. So I'm just going to click this and move that over on top of my circle shape. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on the eyes and the beak. And then I'm going to align them on the vertical axis. I'm going to hit this. They were pretty close, so they didn't move much. Okay, so now I have my eyes and my beak. I'm going to make the body, which I'm going to use the ellipse tool. And I don't have to make a perfect circle, so I'm going to make an oval. And then I'm going to go to my selection tool and I'm going to turn this a darker blue. So now this is looking okay, except that it's blocking the beak and the eyes. So I want to actually send this shape to the back behind everything. So if I go to Object, lower to the bottom, that will send it to the back. And now I can select everything by doing Control A, and I want to make sure that everything that I have is perfectly aligned. So I'm on the vertical axis, so I'm going to go back here and align that. Now I'm going to duplicate this back shape here, duplicate, and then I'm going to create the body, kind of make it a little bit more of a squat circle here. Change the shape. And then I'm going to want to send this behind the beak and the eyes, but I don't want it to go all the way to the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower it twice. I'm going to lower it once to go behind the beak, and then Object, lower again to go behind the eyes. So I'm starting to get a little bit of an owl shape here. I'm going to make one small black circle for the pupil of one eye. So it's Control, click and drag on a diagonal. Go back up to my selection tool, and I'm going to come down here and make it this black. And then I'm just going to pull it right into the center of one eyeball. I'm going to do the Control D command to duplicate it and click and drag this across here. So now I've got two pupils. One thing I can do here is I can select both of these shapes by going click on one and then shift click. And then I can actually group these shapes too, so they move together. So if I go to Object, Group, now they're one shape. So I'm going to click on this and shift click on the eyes behind it, and I'll align these two in the center. Okay, looking good. We're almost done. So next I'm going to make the legs. So I'm going to use my rectangle tool. So I get that and I click and drag the skinny rectangle. And then I'm going to turn that yellow. And then while I'm still in this rectangle tool, if I go up here into the top menu and change the radius of the corner, you can see that it makes kind of a little rounded shape there. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that. I'm going to click on this again, go back to my drawing tool, and I'm going to back off a little bit because I don't want it to be super rounded, but that looks good. And I'm going to duplicate this shape, Control D, pull it over to the side. If I hold down the Control key and I pull over to the side, it keeps it perfectly in line. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to shift click on this, and I'm going to group these pieces. So Object, Group, and then I'm going to align this to this shape. So I'm going to click both of these shapes and hit vertical axis. So the top shape, whatever shape you click on second will be what the shape aligns to. So these yellow shapes were aligning to this shape because I clicked on it second. Now I'm going to zoom out just a hair. I'm going to grab my rectangle shape again and make sort of a short, squat rectangle here, and I'm going to change the color. And if I go back into my rectangle tool, I can see the settings still has the rounded corner, so that's good. I want to keep that. I'm going to click on this again to bring up my rotation and just tilt that a little bit. And then I'm going to bring this down. And then I want to create a shape that's the same shape as this, just flipped. So I can go to Object, and then I'm going to say, oh, I'm sorry, first you want to duplicate, so Control D, so there's another copy on top, and go to Object, Flip Horizontal, and then I'm just going to pull that shape out. And now I can group these two shapes together, and I can center it along the eyes here, and then I'm going to send this shape all the way to the back. So I'm going to go to Object, lower to the bottom, and there you have it. So the next thing that I would suggest is to save your bird, and you do this by going to File, Save As, And here you can name your drawing, and we're going to save this as an Inkscape SVG. And you can save that right on the desktop, and you'll be there whenever you need them. Okay, that's it. See you next week. Bye.